Let's turn our attention now to the U.S. investigation into the Kunduz hospital attack. To talk more about it, I'm joined by Ivan Eland from Washington, D.C. He's a military analyst and the author of the book, No War for Oil, U.S. Dependency and the Middle East. Ivan, thank you very much for joining us. Now, how do you have human error which according to MSF, on a building that was clearly marked?
Well, I think there was a combination of technical and procedural and human error to do this. I think there's still some questions about why they didn't stop the attack. The attack went on for an hour, and the hospital had called repeatedly into the U.S. command at different offices. Also, there were supposed to be special forces on the ground, and they didn't stop the attacks, tell the plane, hey, you've got the wrong building. And it may be because there weren't special operators within sight of the building, which is another issue. And the most important issue, I think, is I think they violated U.S. procedures by calling in an airstrike when the troops weren't in imminent danger, which leads me to believe that perhaps the U.S. forces are violating their own procedural rules to give the Afghans more military assistance than the U.S. public knows.
So from what I understand, this is a series of events that went wrong. How common are these things like this, like inadequate briefs or human error in military operations?
Oh, well, I think they're very common, especially in the heat of combat. I don't think they did this on purpose because there'd be no incentive to do that. This hospital is, helping with the U.S. Idea that they're transforming Afghanistan and making things better and that sort of thing. And so I think, and of course, it's a huge, in addition to the tragic loss of life, which is the most important thing, the military gets a black eye from hitting a hospital, and it's used by the other side, the Taliban and other groups, as propaganda. So it was a disaster all the way around. So I don't think they did it on purpose. And I think the hospital saying, the Doctors Without Borders saying it's a war crime, I'm not sure it goes that far. I think it was certainly a negligence and not following procedures and just human error. But I would not stray into the war crimes category, because I think that's a term that we want to reserve for people who actively commit civilian casualties on purpose.
So is that the difference between a war crime and negligence then?
Well, I think so. I don't think they had any intention of doing it. And warfare is a messy business. I don't agree with U.S. policy in Afghanistan, and I think the U.S. should withdraw all the troops. But I don't think it's. I think they're going a little far by saying that this is a war crime.
Now, the director of the Doctors Without Borders said a mistake a mistake of this size is quite hard to understand and believe at this stage. As a military analyst, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it was grossly incompetent, but you also have to give them a little bit of credit that they're in combat with the Taliban in close quarters. And in warfare, these things happen all the time, frankly, and that's why you want to avoid war when you can. And unfortunately, that's the problem, is the U.S. gets involved in too many of these situations, and the foreign occupier or troops never get the benefit of the doubt. I assure you the Taliban has made a lot of this propaganda value. As I say in my book, The Failure of Counterinsurgency, the foreign occupier just doesn't get a break with the local population.
All right, Ivan Eland from Washington, D.C., military analyst, we thank you for that analysis.